Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Michael Voss, and I am here today with Andrew Hollister, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of the state of New York on the same ticket with Larry Sharp. They're both Libertarians. And you may recall I've already spoken with Larry Sharp for about an hour and a half on my No Sound Bites Allowed podcast. And you can hear that, and please check it out. It's a great conversation between me and Larry. But today, I had the opportunity to meet up with Andrew, and this is right after the candidate forum in Vestal, New York, at the Vestal Public Library by the Americans for Restoring the Constitution. I always get that a little off. By the way, Andrew, just before we start off, just want to let everybody know we do know each other.
We do. Yep, it's true.
We've known each other, what, about 3-4 years now?
I think at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, I know politicians everywhere, and Andrew's yet another. Actually,
one of them.
Well before you actually got into the political sphere.
Yep.
And
when I was just realizing how corrupt the state was, and my eyes were this big, you know. And
oh yeah, we were having a lot of, and it's funny because in those days we were having conversations very much like what you're having now.
It's true. As
you're running around the state and looking to get elected. And we had no idea that this was going to be, we were looking at an entirely different level of races. And so I guess the first thing I would ask is, how did you get to this point, to be running as for the Lieutenant Governor's seat in the state of New York?
All right, so I'm going to start a few years back and just give the whole story.
Go for it.
All right, so in 2013, the SAFE Act was passed. And for me, that was my political line in the sand. Because I truly thought that the Constitution could protect us. And our corrupt New York State government showed me that the Constitution is just being trampled all over in this state. So that's really what woke me up, and that's how we met through SAFE Act stuff. I started going to rallies in Albany. I started doing voter education at gun shows. I started doing voter education because many gun owners didn't know about the SAFE Act at all. And then about 2 years ago, I got married.
Yeah.
And that was a huge change in my life. I saw a lot of the corruptness in New York. I got married. My wife and I, we started talking about kids. Mm-hmm. And when we started talking with friends and family about kids, they would always say, when are you leaving? Where are you going? Are you leaving New York State? Are you leaving Rochester? Where will you go? Because New York State was not and is not conducive to families. Don't get me wrong, people raise families in New York State, but they constantly tell me about how they're thinking of going to the Carolinas. They're thinking about moving to Florida. And so that kind of hurt me. You know, I was like, I don't want to leave New York. This is where I grew up, born and raised. I hunt in the southern tier. I hike in the Adirondacks. I love that we have 4 seasons. I want my children to have those things. But if I'm going to stay, they might not get as good of an education. I might struggle to provide from them because of how high the taxes are. So I made the decision first to run for city council. That was my my first race. And we did very well. We did well. We ran in an area that people said, nothing is possible. Nothing is possible. And I went into it knowing that I had a less than 3% chance of winning. We raised more money than has ever been raised in over 30 years in that district, in that race. I was the first ever person to be endorsed by the local Conservative Party in that precinct. Yeah. First ever in 38 years. We made progress. Did I win? No. But it was a win. And the reason it was a win, it wasn't a win in the sense of me taking a seat. It was a win because people realized that they're hungry for freedom. And the people who did take office realized they're in trouble. They are in trouble. So they actually tried to implement transparency, which they were never considering before. They wouldn't even consider it. And now they're trying to do it. Now, mind you, they're doing it totally wrong. They have no idea how to do it. We're talking career politicians. They don't even understand what transparency means. So they're doing it totally wrong. But they realize that people want it. They realize their seat could be at risk. I could run again, and they have to do something. So now government is getting better locally just from that one run. Well, when I heard that Larry Sharp was going to run for governor in New York, I knew one thing was for sure, that I was going to be supporting him. Because when I ran my city council race, that's when I first met Larry Sharp. And when we met, we had some really in-depth discussions. And something about Larry is, Larry's like kind of a famous guy. You know, he was a vice presidential nominee. He almost ran as vice president in 2016. So he's very well known. I never got that impression from him. He just talked to me like a normal person. I had no idea that he was like this liberty celebrity. I didn't know. He just treated me as an equal. And we connected, we talked, we agreed. We had the same mindset. So when I ran my last race, Larry actually came up all the way from New York City to Rochester, New York to support my campaign. He did a fundraiser for me. He cared about the people in Rochester when he didn't live anywhere near Rochester.
True, he does.
He does. And so I knew when I heard that he was running for governor that I would be supporting him. I knew I would be a volunteer on the campaign. That was my, and I figured it would be, you know, I own a small IT company. And I figured I'd help design a website maybe, help with some digital stuff, you know, that would be my contribution to the campaign. Well, one day I get a text message from Larry. And it was kind of late at night, and it says, "Do you have time for a phone call?" I was asleep. So I didn't get it till the morning. And when I saw it...
Joy of being a cell phone business,
Yes. And I get it in the morning, and I'm like, what could Larry possibly want to talk about at like, it was like 11:45 at night or something. I'm like, I hope everything's okay. You know, we make arrangements. We have a call later that day. And Larry asks me a very profound question. Larry says, "Andrew, will you bleed with me? Will you bleed your time? Will you bleed your money? Will you bleed your resources, your energy? Will you bleed with me to build a new New York?" Literally, this is what Larry asked. I mean, this is so intense. Will you bleed with me is what Larry is asking me to do. And I look back at that and I think of a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And the quote goes somewhat along the lines of, the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure. And I recall, you know, thinking like, this is the modern way of bleeding to defeat tyranny. Thomas Jefferson meant bullets on a battlefield, and legitimate blood.
Oh yeah.
Today, it's our time, it's our resources, it's our energy. It's getting up off the couch and doing something. And so that's the message I take forward. And I told Larry. I didn't tell him right away. It wasn't an overnight kind of thing. It wasn't. No. It was something I had to seriously think because I knew I was going to give something. I didn't know how much I was going to give, and I didn't know honestly if I was going to be the right person to push liberty forward in New York. I knew I wanted to be that person, but I didn't want to be somebody who would hold it back. And as I really went through it, I realized New York State needs this. If I want to stay in New York, my family needs this. Other people's family needs this. 100,000 people that leave New York every single year. They need this because they don't want to leave. They want to stay. And so that's how I got here. It's kind of a long story, but
it has a lot in there. It tells a lot about you and the entire process. Oh, by the way, folks, if you're wondering, yes, we are outside. We literally came right from the event because we wanted to talk to you. So that's why if you're thinking...
See the rain,
the
cars...
We're not in the rain, though.
Yeah.
But that is the rain.
But we care so much we would be if there wasn't... you know.
Well, I find a way.
Yeah.
But it's important to get this and make sure while we have you, to be able to have that conversation. Now, I want to ask, were you always a libertarian? Because I remember in our conversations, you weren't at first.
Yes, so it's interesting. I first registered to vote when the SAFE Act was passed. Up until that point, I didn't know how important it was. I didn't, like, my high school civics class really didn't really showed me how important it was. Until the SAFE Act was passed, I didn't register to vote. When it passed, I ran to register to vote.
Right.
And the party I knew at the time was the Republican Party.
Right.
I grew up in a conservative home, and I don't actually know what my parents are registered. But one thing that was always the case in my family was that voting is a very private thing. So I don't know what my parents are registered as, and I don't know how they vote. They kind of always kept that. They just gave me the upbringing they did and said, make your own decision, which is really a libertarian thing.
It's a pretty nice thing.
Yeah, yeah. So when I registered to vote, I immediately went to the Republican Party because their message is small government, low taxes, individual liberties. That sounds like the Constitution to me. That sounds like what I believe in. I found as time went on, and I got involved in my local committee. My last election, I ran as a Republican, conservative. Reform Party endorsed me, and I ran as a Libertarian as well. I ran on all four lines.
All the tickets.
Yep,
Okay.
all four lines endorsed me. It was really a historic election in Rochester because nobody's ever done that before.
No.
So it was really cool.
It's
it
usually
was really cool.
one, maybe two lines.
Yep.
Republicans get Republican and conservative.
Yeah, yep.
And then Democrats will get working families, and
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah. So as I kind of learned the process and understood what was going on, it became apparent to me that Republicans, like, they say they're about small government. They say they're about lowering taxes. But many times they don't walk the walk. They don't. And I found I actually disagree with some things because a lot of times Republicans want to be your father. They want to give you a lot of rules and a lot of punishment when you break them. Democrats want to be your mother. They want to kind of coddle you, give you everything when daddy's not looking, and let you get off on things. I kind of feel like libertarians are your brother, right? You don't necessarily want to share a room with them. Maybe they smell a little funny, I don't know. But when you need somebody, they don't bother you. But when you need a ride to the airport, you call up your brother, takes you to the airport. That's kind of my look on libertarians, and that's where I realized I fall. I don't want to impose regulations on people or even have to have harsh punishments. And I don't want to coddle people and give them a bunch of free stuff. I just want to be there when they have a problem to help them.
Okay. And by the way, folks, if you see us looking over there, there's the cutest little 2-year-old who's looking right at us, waving. But a lot of people say, and how would you address it? They say, well, libertarians, they're just Republican light. They're just a more feel-good version of a Republican.
Yep.
And I asked Larry that.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, but I want to hear your answer.
Sure. So, and I didn't see Larry's interview, so I don't know what his answer is. So you'll get the raw meat, know. I would start by saying in New York State, Republicans are Democrat light. They are, in many ways, especially statewide. You see, we got things like SAFE Act. You look at how the state votes. Republicans in New York State, not all of them. We've got some good Republicans.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We have some good Republicans in New York. I'm painting maybe with a broad brush, but you look at things like SAFE Act, I look at some of my elected officials, and I go, yeah, you've heard of the term rhino, Republican in name only.
Yes.
We have a lot of those in New York State today. So to your point, are libertarians just Republican-like? I would say no. I think that our principle on not using force to force our will and our culture on others sets us very far apart. I would say we absolutely agree on the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Absolutely. In theory, we agree on lower taxes and small business, but they don't necessarily take action on that. Some do, but generally, overall, our state budget has continued to increase. Our regulations have continued to increase.
Right.
And none of this is possible without Republicans also voting yes. I can guarantee if you had some libertarians in there, they would be no's. They would be no's. And if they weren't no's, they wouldn't be libertarians.
Well, then let's look at some of the issues. Some of the things that are being talked about in this race right now.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, Medicare for all. This is being proposed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The DNC chairman, Tom Prince, yes, has said that she is going to be the model of Democrats going forward, and we've seen Governor Cuomo run to the far, far left in this race.
Yep.
So Medicare for all is on the table, and it's projected to cost New York State, in terms of every individual's taxes,
Yep.
about 3 times as much in taxes, or in terms of the state debt, doubling,
Yep.
literally doubling
Doubling
the
our state
debt.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who are going, well, we need to change healthcare, Medicare for all?
Yep. I say Medicare for all is a terrible idea. I do. I stand by that. Medicare for all is, let me put it another way that maybe our veterans can relate to. VA for all. And, all right, so anybody that's a veteran, unless you're in Syracuse, the people in Syracuse seem to love their VA. They say it's very good, but by and large, when I speak with veterans, they've had awful, terrible experiences at the VA. So much so that some of them just refuse treatment because it's that bad. You look at people in Britain who are starting to get really upset with their Medicare for all, their VA for all. It's not working. What always works is free market. And I'll give you a really good example. Actually, free market and transparency.
Okay.
So let's start with transparency. Do you know what your doctor bill costs?
Yeah, we all get a bill at the end of the day.
But before you see your doctor, do you know what your bill's going to be?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows
No.
what it's going to be.
No.
So there's a wonderful diner here. It's the Skylark Diner.
Yeah.
And if we were to go in there and sit down for a meal, and they gave us the menus, and there's no pricing on it, and they say, choose your food. Okay, maybe I want the BLT, or maybe I want this or that. And the waitress comes, what do you want? And I know what I want, but I don't know what it costs. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll send you a bill in the mail. Maybe it's covered, maybe it's not. It just kind of depends. Order what you want, enjoy. Don't go home hungry, and we'll send you a bill maybe. You wouldn't eat at the diner. You wouldn't.
Okay. It's an interesting analogy that you're drawing there.
Yeah.
And I see that.
And I'll just kind of wrap it up with no other industry is ran this way. No other industry do you make a purchase without knowing in advance what it is. But there's another issue. You as the patient are not the customer.
Okay.
Your insurance company is the customer. And then you pay a portion of the bill later, maybe, depending on your coverage. So that's why when you go to your doctor and you want a specific track of treatment, you can't have it. You're not the customer. So they go, no, you need an MRI first. Then you need a CAT scan. Then you need this. Then you need that. And you go through this whole track. Maybe 8 months later, they follow the treatment plan you wanted, and then you get better. You had no say in it. Medicare for all does something much worse. Now the government is the customer. Not even the insurance company. At least today, if you have the financial ability to, you can switch insurance companies.
Right.
Once it becomes Medicare for all, the government's the customer, your care is now in the government's hands, and we see how government agencies and organizations are ran, like a train wreck.
Right.
So it's got to go away.
Well, then here's the counter question.
Sure.
That needs to be asked about that. If the government, we all agree, government doesn't know how to run anything properly. Well, everyone except President Obama agrees that the government can't run anything.
They take taxes away from us really well.
Well,
They take our money.
They take money.
They take our money.
I wouldn't quite call that a business, but
Extortion,
it's more
maybe,
like a crime. But, okay. But given that, so government doesn't know how to do it, and insurance companies interfere with me having my health care for me. What's the alternative that you're offering? Because I understand, and you're not going to have an argument amongst most Republicans, veterans who are Democrats, and well, a whole swath of New York would agree with you.
Yep.
So that's not the question.
Yeah. question is, what's the replacement?
What's the replacement?
Yeah. So there's a few options.
Yeah.
One is the idea of what's called the Costco model. I don't know if you've heard of this. Yep, Costco, like the membership club, kind of like Sam's Club. This is actually happening. It's already happening because of how bad healthcare is. One of my customers does it. And that is, instead of paying a health insurance company monthly, you pay a group of doctors monthly.
Yeah.
And it's like way cheaper. I mean, we're talking like $100 a month for a family, which is less than what I used to pay for healthcare before Obamacare. And it works really well. So you pay $100 a month. It goes into this pool of these doctors. There's different specialists. They all participate. When you're sick, you go to the doctor, and the doctor takes care of you. There's no copay. There's no anything. It's just covered in your plan. The really cool thing is, not only is it making healthcare better in the sense that now you are the customer, and that doctor is dedicated to you, there's no more patient wait times. The patients who are doing this, when they go to see their doctor, they see their doctor. You're not waiting in a waiting room for an hour because the doctor knows you can leave.
Okay.
The other thing that's really cool that they're starting to do is they're actually going back to house calls, which is really cool.
Oh, that's been a long time.
Yeah, the doctor that I know that does it locally, all of his patients on that plan, house calls. You have a cold, the doctor comes to you. It's just the coolest thing ever. So that's one model, and it's being implemented across the country. I see some skepticism.
Yes, because I have a couple of issues, a couple of things that instantly come to my mind.
Okay.
You know me.
Yes,
I'm a
please.
details, I'm a numbers man.
Yep.
So the first thing that comes to my mind is, do we have enough doctors for that?
Okay.
Second question that comes to my mind is, so it's a local pool of people contributing into this local pool of doctors.
Yep.
What if one of those people, or let's say it's 100 people with, let's say, 10 doctors. I'm just throwing out a number there.
Yep.
So they're paying in, but let's say out of those 100 people, statistically, at least 2 to 3 of them are going to get cancer.
Okay.
Which is extremely expensive in our current system.
Yep.
How does that pool, which is very limited,
absolutely,
handle that high cost for those 3 people?
Yep. So in that situation, there are other forms of insurance.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
So you would supplement.
Yeah. So you can still. Here's the thing. We want to remove the restriction. So I'm not saying that's the only plan. You can definitely get catastrophic coverage. There are cancer policies. I actually have a cancer policy. It's like $14 a month or something like that. And if I get cancer, not only do they pay for my coverage, pay for my hospital visits, they actually pay out towards some of my household bills too.
So it's lower because it's very specific.
It's very specific.
Which is true in most things in insurance. If it's very specific, you're paying for that, then you're paying a lot less.
And one of the reasons healthcare is so expensive today is because it's universal healthcare. And a lot of people read that as free. It's not free.
It's not free.
It means you're paying universally for every type of coverage.
Right.
You're paying for coverage that you don't have body parts for.
Sure.
You are. And that's why your insurance is so expensive. That's why my insurance is so expensive.
It is a mandate of that.
Yes, it's a mandate that you have to pay for something that you can never use. The other thing that would be really important for healthcare is making it so that you can purchase across state borders. Now, this is largely, I believe, going to be a federal thing.
Yes.
So there's not much we can do other than be a huge advocate and fight and talk about this nationally, because competition breeds good things. In my area, there's only about 2 or 3 competing health insurance companies. They have a corner on the market.
Yeah.
If this opened up to the whole nation, there would be other companies with other options. We remove the mandates and allow companies to cover what you want to pay for. You should be able to have an a la carte healthcare, where you want to pay for, my cancer coverage, some catastrophic, and a few visits a year. You should have that option if you want it. Because Medicare for All is going to create a 2-tiered system. It's going to create a system for us and a system for those who can afford to just pay cash.
Okay. That's an interesting outlook. So I know a couple of our people have been giving us some high signs. because we're getting into details, so it takes a little bit longer than they were expecting.
Yep.
And I enjoy that.
Yep.
And I got to give it to you and Larry. Both have been answering any question I would ask. You've made sure it's been very clear. You're taking your time.
Yes.
Rather than that
Yep.
usual 30-second sound bite that we would get out there, which makes it a lot shorter,
Yep.
but no real information.
Yeah.
And usually that's why I make people very upset, because I keep bugging try to get a better answer. But let's do a little bit of a lightning round.
Okay. Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
So we're looking at the New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, has mentioned that we're going to see an increase of $18 billion to the New York State budget, our debt in New York State, by 2021.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Do you have a plan or a path that can either cut that down
Yes.
or change it completely?
Absolutely. So we have three things: naming rights to our infrastructure, addressing our pension bomb, and taking care of Medicaid copays. So I'll run through each one really quickly. Today we have bridges named after our imperial family, the Cuomos. We do.
Yes, we do.
It's true. It's a sad reality. Why isn't that the Key Bank Bridge, the Bank of America Bridge, the Staples Bridge? Why aren't we offering leasing rights to these bridges for $100 million a year for these companies to have their name on the bridge, and they will get mentioned many, many times all throughout the day during rush hour traffic? Amazing advertising. Not only that, if they take the naming rights to the bridge, they also take over responsibility of maintenance, which means the taxpayers are not paying for potholes anymore and the repair of them. Those companies are. Last piece on that, no more tolls. Not going to be allowed in the contract. Do those three things, we lift a huge burden off our infrastructure. Companies that want to buy the naming rights, great. They do that. They get something great out of it. The taxpayers get something great out of it. So there we go. We're going to lower spending there. Next piece is our pension bomb. This hits home to a lot of people because there's a lot of people with New York State pensions. It's true. But the problem is, just a few years ago, pensions were 12% of our budget. Now they're 15% of our budget.
They're going to grow.
And it's projected that in 10 years, 15 at the most, that New York State's going to default on the pensions.
Yes.
Which is going to be a total recession in New York State. So many people depend on these pensions. How do we fix that? We have to negotiate them out of the budget. We have to. We have to work with the unions, with the employees, with everybody. It's not going to be an easy task. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. No, it's going to be hard. It's going to take 4 years. There's maybe going to be buyouts. There's going to be helping people move their pension into a 401k, moving to a 403b, whatever is right for them, to get these out of our budgets. If we don't, these people will be homeless. They'll default.
Yeah.
And pension insurance, if we're lucky, will kick in. And maybe they get 30% of their pension. It's not acceptable. Let's take care of the issue now. We're not going to kick it down the road like every other politician. Oh, that would be somebody else's problem. No, we fix it now. It'll be a huge chunk of the budget gone. The third piece is, Medicaid.
Oh.
Medicaid. All right, there we
I
are.
thought you were going to have a presidential moment.
Yeah.
Ha Texas.
All right, so Medicaid. Real simple thing. We adjust the copays from $1 and $3, which is what it is now for a doctor's visit and an emergency room visit, to $12 and $36. Why are we going to do that? So that people actually use it for medical care. Right now, we have people going to the emergency rooms for stubbed toes. We have them going to emergency rooms for a cough. We have people using our ambulances as taxi services. And anybody who's in the EMS field will smile and nod when I say this next thing. They're called frequent flyers. And everybody
I've heard about
knows,
it.
that's what they're called. It's people who abuse the system. Are there people that use it correctly? Yes. But there's so many people abusing the system. We make that minor tweak. We save a lot of money. We offload some of the unnecessary visits on our healthcare system. We also improve care. Because right now, you go to the emergency room with chest pains, the ambulance is tied up taking somebody to the mall instead of to the hospital. When you get there, you got a bunch of people with a cough and a stubbed toe because why not? It's $36 or it's $3.
Right.
So you change it to $36. People are going to go when it's an emergency, not whenever it's convenient. Save a lot of money, help the system, alleviate that, people get better care. We do those three things, we reduce spending drastically in New York State. Then we can work on taking care of things like our debt and letting local municipalities vote down their taxes.
All right, so there's a lot in that, and it takes a lot more time.
Yeah, we could talk an hour about that. Easily. Yep.
But let's say I'm going to look at a different aspect of that question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
You're a young man.
I am.
You've never held elected office.
I have not.
Larry is a relatively young man, according to politics.
Yep.
And he's a good, strong man. And he's never held an elected office.
Yep.
So the challenge is, let's say you get elected.
Yep.
You're now the lieutenant governor.
Yep.
Larry has put out his proposal, and now you have to go out to the New York State Assembly, which is dominated by Democrats who are pushing and racing to be socialists.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this isn't that.
Correct.
How do you
How do we make it happen?
Yes.
Yep. So the first thing we're going to talk about is ballot access.
Okay.
Right? We win this election, we get what's called ballot access in New York.
Yes.
Which means libertarians can now get on the ballot like other major parties can.
Like the Conservative Party, the Republican, Democrat,
Green Party,
working
Independent,
families,
all these parties. Yep. What's going to happen when there's a libertarian governor and lieutenant governor in New York State? Libertarians are going to run for office and they're going to be empowered to do so. If we get elected, that means enough people believed in our message, they want to see that change. So that's the first thing. Everybody in the Senate, everybody in the Assembly is going to know their seat's at risk. And of all the things these people care about, many of them care very much about keeping that seat.
Okay.
There will be an election in 2019.
Yes, there will.
There will be an election in 2020, in 2021. And
every year.
Each of these seats are going to come up for election.
Right.
And if your assemblyman or your Senate person does not vote for the things that the people said they want Larry Sharpe and Andrew Hollister to implement, what's going to happen? They're going to risk losing their seat. And they're going to know that there's a line of people lining up that will support our plan, that will run against them, and they'll be able to get on the ballot. Okay. So that's step one. They're going to be scared. They're going to be scared.
That's an interesting view. Okay.
The next part is, you mentioned it, we're not in politics. We're just average people who work. And our support is the people. Everybody else's support is dirty jobs, having political currency, owing people favors, working on getting a grant approved, like that sort of stuff. We have none of that. We go into office, clean slate. We don't owe anybody anything. We don't have big donors. Our average donation is $75. $75. We don't have some big donor that's going to come and say, "Hey, I got you $44,000 for your campaign. Time to pay up."
True.
We have none of that.
Right.
So we don't have that hanging over our heads. They have nothing to hold over our heads. But we have somebody wants to take your seat. They're going to have to make a decision. And some of them may play hardball. Some of them might keep their seat. Some of them are going to lose their seat. We're going to start having libertarians in the Senate, libertarians in the Assembly. And you'll hear some of the other parties talk about the deciding vote is really about 3 seats. I think that's in the Senate.
In the state Senate. Yes.
Yeah. So it could change. 2-3 years. That's all it would take.
It would be an interesting prospect. And you know what? That's a very unique. I didn't expect that answer.
Not a politician. I think of things a little different.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting proposal. All right. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do it.
We can do more.
Sit down and really
I'll come
do
back.
more.
I'll come back.
And I know Larry's offered to come in, and I know you will as well.
Come. Yep.
But I think this is enough to wet the
people
whistle.
Interested. Yeah.
Make people say, "Gee, what's this?" So if people do want to follow this up, before I get the chance to do another interview with you or Larry, where would they go? How can they contact you?
So the absolute best place to go today is going to be Facebook. I know some people don't like Facebook. I'll tell you some other places you can go to. But on our Facebook, literally, we update the content 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. We do. We constantly stream live video. We're doing town halls, meet and greets all across the state. Sometimes we do 5 events a day, and we live stream like every single one of them. So if you're wondering about our policy or something, you can go there, watch a video. It's not edited. There's no way for us to edit. It's literally live. We set no rules.
I've done them too.
Yep, you know about them. We don't avoid any questions. We take any questions. So Facebook.com, search for Larry Sharp, that's Sharp with an E, for governor, or for New York, and Andrew Hollister for a new New York. If Facebook's not your thing, we're on Twitter, search Larry Sharp, search Andrew Hollister. We're on Instagram, we've got a YouTube channel. You can also go to LarrySharp.com. That's where you're going to find the white papers on our policy. If you're a policy geek, and we've got some serious policy geeks.
That's me. That's where I'm going.
That's where you're going.
I'm running through the numbers.
Yeah. And we've got white papers. Some of them I think are over 12 pages long. And I mean, you can get in the weeds on policy and then come and ask us about it. That's where to go. That's where you can get all the information.
Okay. Fair. And yes, I do go in the weeds, as many people know. And I am in the process of doing that now.
Oh, beautiful.
But I do thank you for giving me the opportunity here to speak with you, and looking forward to the next time we're going to be able to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
And folks, please let us know what you think of this. So the more you like it, the more I can get them to show up faster.
Yeah, we'll definitely show up. Like it, share it, retweet it, show all your friends, tag your buddies.
Absolutely.
Let's get the word out.
So this is Michael Voss and Andrew Hollister from Vestal, New York. We thank you and look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you, guys.